My name is Crystal Gunther, and I'm the Senior Director of Community Philanthropy here at the Community Foundation of Southern Indiana. And on behalf of our Board of Directors, I am pleased to announce the launch of our Capacity Building Grant Program, and thrilled to see so many signed up today who have joined us to hear more about it. So in being mindful of everyone's time this morning, we will go ahead and get started with the presentation. So, as I've already introduced myself this morning, but also Linda Speed, our President and CEO, who unfortunately is unable to join us today. She and I primarily make up and are responsible for our grant making programs here at the Community Foundation of Southern Indiana. As I mentioned, she's unable to join us. It'll just be me with the presentation this morning. I will be pausing several times for questions during the presentation, but if something pops up in your mind as we go along, please feel free to add your questions to the chat. We will also have a Q&A after when we conclude. This session is being recorded, and we will send it out to all participants today after the presentation. It will also be available for viewing on our website as well. So most of you are already familiar with the foundation, but for anyone that is joining us this morning who is not, I just want to take a brief moment just to provide an introduction of who we are and what we do as a foundation in the community. Our foundation was founded in 1991 as the region's partner resource and steward in philanthropy. We initially covered a 5-county footprint, but as a community foundation today, we cover just Clark and Floyd counties, and we currently manage over $160 million in charitable assets and over 260 individual funds, each of which supports the unique charitable intent of the donors who established the fund. We are, I guess you would call us a charitable vehicle for donors, both during and after their lifetimes. And we are happy to announce that we have been serving this community for over 30 years now as a partner in philanthropy. We have experienced a substantial growth over those 30 years, growing our assets from what was an initial $1 million gift to it was a matching grant opportunity provided by the Lilly Endowment to over $160 million today. Our grant making last year totaled over $6.4 million from our endowments, and we have awarded over $49 million in grants over our last 30 years. Our mission as a community foundation is to build enduring charitable resources used to positively impact our community by serving as a partner and resource for our donors, their advisors, and of course, you all, our area nonprofits. The Community Foundation of Southern Indiana's Capacity Building Grants Program is dedicated to supporting nonprofit organizations' capacity so that they may continue to provide the essential services that they are uniquely positioned to offer in our community. This year-round grant program is intended to support organizations serving both Clark and Floyd counties in Indiana. In community needs surveys undertaken by the foundation in partnership with the IU Southeast Applied Research and Education Center, Dr. Fry and her team, nonprofit leaders stated that finding funds to support their internal capacity building is one of the biggest challenges that they face. Without support, the outward-facing programs and services that are provided to our community may not be able to continue or expand to fulfill their mission. You can read more on this in our report that was released in 2017 in partnership with the IU Southeast Applied Research and Education Center. It's called The Nonprofit Sector, a Resource Guide for Clark and Floyd Counties. All of our reports and resources can be found on our website in digital format. So you can always navigate to our website and go to the Community Resources tab, and you'll find all of this information there as well. The Community Foundation believes that by providing capacity building grants to support area nonprofits, the foundation is helping to address these consistent capacity building concerns identified by our area nonprofit leaders. So the foundation's board of directors has designated a portion of the Community Impact Fund budget, which is our permanent unrestricted endowment. So a portion of that budget in 2022 has been dedicated for capacity building grants, and our board plans to keep this program year-round with a similar cycle to our assist grant program if you've ever applied for an assist grant through us. So what does this program define as capacity building? Capacity building grants focus on the inner workings of an organization. A capacity building grant recognizes the need for effective management of the organization and provides funding to support administrative systems and operations. Ultimately, these grants are intended to help build organizational effectiveness and further the success of the organization's mission. In general, capacity building grants are not about expanding an organization's services, adding a new program necessarily, or renovating a building, unless, and we'll talk a little bit more about this in a little bit, unless renovations may lead to higher accreditations or credentialing and increases the quality of programming and/or services. Capacity building grants are about strengthening an organization's infrastructure, management, and governance. Through these grants, the foundation seeks to strengthen the efficiency, effectiveness, and sustainability of organizations serving Clark and Floyd County residents. A capacity building grant is intended to allow an organization to highlight their vision and strategic planning efforts that are already in place to grow and sustain their operations. So what are successful capacity building projects? What do these look like? What are eligible types of projects? So some examples include addressing an organization that is wanting to address issues that affect the organization as a whole, not necessarily just a single program. An example would be the creation of a new strategic plan or potentially the purchase of a new accounting software. And we'll go into more examples here in just a little bit. It would be an organization addressing and supporting a strategic point in time for that organization, such as a leadership transition, so succession planning, maybe addressing a period of rapid growth, whether that's expected or unexpected, or a significant organizational change, again, expected or unexpected. An example of this would be leaders within the organization maybe retiring, and succession planning and leadership training being needed. Another example of successful capacity building project would be upgrades or renovations that may be required, again, I mentioned earlier, for licensing, maybe for service rating or certification purposes. An example would be a childcare provider might seek to attain a higher path to quality rating, but must renovate a bathroom or some other aspect of their facility to meet state standards. So that improvement and subsequent increase in maybe PTQ rating may be essential to financial sustainability as it increases ability to access voucher funds or other state support. Eligible types of requests include things like fund development planning, external communications strategy planning, so not putting up billboards necessarily and printing rec cards, but actual strategy planning, like hiring a consultant to help define what a communications strategy might look like. Technology upgrades, whether that's hardware or software, program and service evaluation, and then potentially additional staffing capacity, website upgrades, and maybe volunteer training. And just some examples of eligible types of requests. Requests that do not qualify would include, but are not limited to, things like debt pay down or pay off, and expenses incurred prior to the proposal request date. Media campaigns, so printing flyers or rec cards, purchasing radio or television time, purchasing billboards, things like that would not qualify. Again, hiring a consultant to help put together a communication strategy or plan would. Site relocations, physical site relocations, general renovations and upgrades, again, that don't fit what I had explained earlier with regards to if it benefits from a credentialing or accreditation standpoint. creating or contributing to endowments, supporting capital campaigns, or paying overhead expenses such as rent and utilities would not qualify. Are there any questions at this time? Let me see if the chat feature has anything. Doesn't look like it. Okay, we'll keep going. Again, we'll have some opportunity for questions at the end. So what types of requests, so who can apply? Organizations that have received grants. So just as a disclaimer, organizations that have received grants through the foundation's competitive grant programs, whether that's assist grants or quality of place grants, within the last 12 months are eligible to apply for this program, so long as the organization is in good standing and compliant with the current grant agreement already in place for those particular programs. Eligible applicants must have a request that will strengthen the organization's efficiency, effectiveness, and/or overall sustainability. An organization must be a 501c3 public charity in good standing with the IRS, or have an agreement, a mutual agreement with a fiscal sponsor that is a 501c3 public charity in good standing with the IRS. And then, of course, the organization must serve Clark and Floyd County residents. So all of the information provided today can be found on our website at www.cfsouthernindiana.com. Our grant application portal link can be found there as well. If you've never applied for a grant through the foundation before, you will have to create an account. It's pretty user-friendly, pretty self-explanatory. Once you log in, you will see the option to apply for the capacity building grant. So what do successful proposals look like? So partners are encouraged to develop proposals that do a few things. One, it must clearly define the ask. So it needs to clearly and strongly fit within the Community Foundation's program definition of what capacity building is, while also demonstrating careful planning and timing in that proposal. It must describe the long-term positive impact. Looks like there's a question in the chat. I'll answer that here in just a moment when we break. So it must also describe the long-term positive impact on the mission of the organization. This is not funding for just a one-time effort. Remember, it's more long-term, and it's not, again, to just improve short-term effectiveness. This is all for long-term benefit. It must have clear evidence and a plan presented that the proposal can be fully sustainable beyond the grant period and/or contributes to the long-term sustainability of the organization. And it must clearly define, the budget must be clearly defined and a budget narrative included. This information is very important in the evaluation process. The proposed budget needs to make sense, and it must clearly explain the use of the grant funds. And then lastly, board and staff recruitment strategy must be defined and explained. And that strategy must demonstrate a diverse nature and representation of the communities that are being served. Okay, so I'm gonna pause real quick because it looks like there was a question. Someone asked to explain board and staff development in more depth. So this would be, again, if there's some additional professional development that might be needed for a staff member to obtain a higher credential, and/or you have new staff members that come on board that need to be trained in any particular area whether that's, somebody in the development department that needs to attend maybe one of the IU Lilly Family School of Philanthropy fundraising school sessions or workshops, that type of stuff. Same thing with board development, whether that's attending something that's provided through any type of development association that might help the board better serve the organization in their role or their capacity as a board member, as far as governance goes and what their responsibility is as a board member. Hopefully that answers that question. If not, of course, I'm always going to be accessible after this presentation, along with, emailing or calling me. That's always an option if I didn't fully answer your question. Okay, so the program timeline is pretty straightforward. The application opened on April 1st. Of course, we're having the virtual information session today. June 30th is, as we call it, a application. That's when this period ends for this particular grant program. And then in August, applicants would be notified of whether or not they received a grant. So again, grant applications are open year-round with quarterly deadlines and awards, very similar to our assist grant program. This allows organizations to apply for grants to fulfill their needs when the time is right for you all. All applications must be submitted by the last day of each quarter. So we're looking at it on a quarterly basis. So for example, everything that comes in between April and the end of June will be reviewed in July, as is the applicants, where we indicate that applicants will be notified of grant selection or not in August. So I'm going to stop screen sharing now. That concludes our presentation. As I've mentioned already a couple times, this session is being recorded and will be sent out to all attendees today. I will also be available for view on our website. And I will open it up for applications now if there are any at this time. But again, the information that I've presented today is available online on our website as well. It looks like there's some questions in the chat. So there was a question to go back to the board and staff development. Can you explain more? The question, a follow-up question to that was, could this include hiring someone to build a board? I'm not sure if you're asking if it's for to a new startup nonprofit organization, but typically our overall general grant program requirements are for a nonprofit organization to be established and operating for at least 24 months before eligible to apply for a grant through any of the community foundation's grant programs. But hiring someone to build a board, hiring a consultant to help in strategizing how to maybe reorganize or reassess board recruitment strategy, yes, would qualify. Would the grant consider staff development that include training in other cities and cost of staying there? Again, yes. If it requires sending staff somewhere, it would be more for covering the cost of whatever that particular program is. So again, if you're planning on sending folks to Hawaii for a week-long stay for some professional development, it is highly unlikely that will be acceptable. However, if you're sending folks to Indianapolis or Bloomington for a Lilly Family School of Philanthropy or fundraising school workshop that is 2 days long, yes, that would be an acceptable request. Let's see, another question is, does the organization need to have a physical address in Clark and Floyd County, or can it just be part of the service area? It can absolutely just be part of the service area. It does not have to be physically located or have a site location in Clark or Floyd counties. But I would strongly recommend that in the proposal, if you are serving multiple counties, that there is an explanation for the percentage of individuals that are served by your organization that are benefiting from the request. So, what percentage of Clark and Floyd County residents does the organization serve on an annual basis typically? That information is helpful, because if it's only 2%, unlikely that will qualify. Can the grant only benefit Clark and Floyd County residents? Or, okay, I think we answered that one. Or if we have a location in Indiana but serve residents from the region, what are the award amounts that may be requested? Anything over $5,000 up to $25,000 is what we are accepting for requests at this time. Would a board or staff retreat to focus on strategic planning, succession planning be considered for this grant? Yes, it would. Again, anything of that nature that helps strengthen the internal capacity, the governance, et cetera, of the organization. Can we request grant funds for multiple projects, or do they need to be individual requests? What is the dollar allotment grant? Is there a limit on how often an organization can apply? Annually, an organization can only apply one time per year, as similar to our assist grant program. And then the other part of that question, multiple projects. I would highly recommend that you stick to one or two things at the most. Having that strategic focus on one thing or another is more likely to qualify. And then we have rebranded. Will this impact our eligibility? No. If you have not completely started over from scratch with a new 501c3 designation from the IRS, if you're just rebranding, for example, Communities and Schools of Clark County rebranded to YouthLink, that does not disqualify you and set you back to zero and have to wait 24 months. You would be eligible to apply if you're just rebranding. And then could the grant also help with new staff salary? I've lost you right here, maybe half or something like that. Again, staffing, yes, potentially, but again, the proposal needs to indicate and clearly define how that helps the organization in a broader general level on a long-term scale. And I think that is all the questions in the chat. Are there any others at this time? And so please feel free to type it in there and wait a couple of seconds here, see if anything comes in. All right. Okay, so again, thank you all for attending this morning. The session will be sent out to all that registered. And then again, all the information is available on our website. So I hope you found this information helpful as you consider submitting a proposal. Again, you don't have to rush on submitting your proposal. Right now, we are just gathering what will be reviewed, everything that comes in from the 1st of April until the end of June. All right, thank you all so much for joining us. We appreciate our partnership with each and every one of you. I'm blessed to work with you guys on a daily basis. Your passion and the work that you do is amazing. Please feel free to reach out to me with any questions after this information session. I'd be happy to touch base. Hope you all have a great day.